I'm not the same anymore, just your cold embrace. I see a light through the dark, but I hide my face. How do we find our way to a better place?
Pastor Mark, welcome to the Suffering Servants podcast. Good to see you this morning on a Thursday morning at 10 o'clock. Well, it's 9 o'clock over there, right?
Yeah, it's 9 o'clock Central Time. Yeah.
Have you been have you been up and about already?
I have been. I've been up since about 7 a.m. with the kids, and we've been having fun playing, and we watched a little bit of Daniel Tiger this morning. So, yeah.
Wow, like good educational TV, right?
Right. Yeah. 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 Well, thanks for having me on the show, man. I appreciate it, Tyler. Yeah.
I'm excited for this. This is a new kind of episode. Usually when I'm talking with people, obviously, I mean, you have your own story, you have your own suffering in your life and things like that. But
Sure.
And we'll talk about that a little bit. But
Right.
really, what we want to do is give you an opportunity to share about something really exciting in your life, and that is you are not just a pastor, you are not just a father, you are not just a dad, you are an author. And we want to give you an opportunity to talk about your new book, Curious Cases. And so it's a joy to have you on the show, and I'm looking forward to hearing about all the things. So why don't you just start by telling the listener just a little bit about who you are, where you serve, and how you ended up there, a little bit about your family and things like that.
Hey, thank you. Yeah, so I'm Pastor Mark Renner. I live up here in Janesville, Wisconsin, married to my wonderful wife, Dana, going on 8 years. Time has flown by. And we have 3 children, and 2 are living. And we're just very blessed by God to have our family and be together. And that's my greatest joy in life, I would say, is spending time with them, hanging out with them, and worshiping God. Of course, I love worshiping God.
Yes, we well, I mean, that is worshiping, right? I mean, you're doing the things that things that God has called you to do, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So, and I'm a pastor up here in Janesville. St. Mark was the name of it, and I could tell, Mark, St. Mark. So,
ironic, right?
Yeah. So really friendly.
They call
people,
you, and you're
really
like,
cool.
you're like, how can I not say no to this call? They're calling. It's my namesake calling me home, right?
Right. Yeah, that's exactly right. So, great people, fun area. We're sort of in between Rockford and Madison up here, kind of. It is kind of a traditional Midwestern Lutheran church, very friendly people, do a little bit of outreach in the community. Anybody who comes in the building feels welcomed, I would say. And we have a great staff and some just really fantastic people here. So, yeah.
How big is your staff over there?
So I'm the associate pastor. We have a senior pastor, Brad Erlob, and then DCM, Director of Christian Ministry. We have Amy Nelson. She's fantastic. And we have a part-time secretary also. So decent sized staff. Yeah.
Excellent. So the people that come to church, they're like, how many people would you say, not that church is about numbers, I don't like getting caught up in all that, but so you have 2 pastors, so clearly it's a larger congregation.
It is not a larger congregation, surprisingly, Tyler. So we have about 120 there a week. So we have 3 services with about 40 people at each service. We have a Saturday night service, we have a contemporary service, we have a traditional service. So try to be present in the community. And we also help a little bit at a country church outside through this thing called the Helping Hands Agreement, which is a very positive thing. I think basically a smaller congregation is trying to get a pastor, is trying to work that out or be in a place where they can afford a pastor, and they have maybe 30 to 50 there a week. So but people are usually surprised by that. Like, it's a larger congregation. It's like, it's smaller, maybe on the edge of being a medium-sized congregation.
Yeah, I mean, when you said, I was thinking about you said two pastors. My wife's congregation that she teaches at, they've got they have 5 services, one on
Right.
Saturday, 4 on Sundays, and it's really weird because I've had the opportunity to guest preach there before, and
Nice.
they have an 8 o'clock service, a 9:30 service, a 10:45 contemporary service, and an 11 o'clock
Oh,
traditional service.
wow. Yeah.
So the pastor who's on for preaching, what he has to do is when he preaches at the contemporary service, he literally has to bolt from the contemporary service. There's like a time, like you're watching the clock,
Yeah.
like at the back, and like, as soon as it hits
Right.
like 11:20, 11:30, like
Yeah.
like 11:20, 11:25, you have to like, all right, sermon, got to wrap up the sermon because I got to get down to the sanctuary to do the same thing at that church. But
Yeah.
they worship probably, I mean, it's well over 1,000 on a weekend,
Sure.
and they have
Yeah.
2 pastors, and I'm like,
Right. Right.
holy smokes, you probably need 4, maybe 5 in a church that size just
Yeah.
to properly be
Mhm.
able to minister to people. So
Oh, yeah.
it's actually refreshing to hear that a church that's, that's the 120, 130 people has 2 pastors. 'Cause
Yeah.
I feel like that allows for
Mhm.
you and for your senior pastor to actually really get to know your people and really get to know
For sure.
what they're going through, what their struggles are, and be able to properly administer care where needed.
Yes. Yeah, I think so too. Like what you were describing a second ago, that sounded like my vicarage church in Canton, Ohio, where we had 2 pastors, there's vicar, but just a ton going on, and it could get pretty busy, but it was a great place. So yeah.
Stretch a little thin, maybe.
Yeah, sometimes. Yep.
So graduated Concordia.
Yes.
Go Cards, right?
Go
CUAA.
Cards, yep. Concordia Ann Arbor, majored in religion there. And really, it's a special place, and very thankful that things are, let's say, being resolved, I guess, is how I
For the
put
time
it.
being.
And yeah, for the time being. And very special place. It's a growing place, and it should be more than about money. This is a mission of the church,
Mhm.
and we should have a winning attitude and
Mhm.
not say, hey, we don't want to deal with stress each year on, you know, being right on the edge of not making money. Instead, we should have a winning attitude and say, hey, this is more than about money. This is about discipling people. This is
Right.
about providing a great education to people. This is about community. I don't think the Concordias were started initially to make money. If that's the
No.
case, boy, I'm totally mistaken. But I don't think any of the Concordias were started to make money.
No.
So
Well,
yeah, that's interesting.
That's the unique thing about Concordia, and obviously, we're both graduates of Ann Arbor. We're both graduates
Yep.
of our seminary in St. Louis, and
Yeah.
I served, or I went to Concordia for, I always tell people that I did a victory lap in 2014.
Yeah.
That was what my best man said at my wedding. He's like, I met
Nice.
Tyler during his victory lap at Concordia. And
Right.
so I did 5 years because I thought it'd be fun to try every single major that was within the family life program.
Right.
And and so
Nice.
I was there for 5 years, and then worked on the grounds crew for another 4 years after that,
Oh,
while I was
cool.
serving at Family of God. So Concordia, very special. And in that time,
Yes.
yeah, we're producing, church workers and future pastors and things like that. But the number of
Yeah,
students
absolutely.
that would come to the university that are either have a very fringe idea of what Christianity is or who Jesus
Right.
is, and they get to encounter him in a very special way there. And
Yes.
it's not just church workers. And I think that we've forgotten that to a
Hmm.
point where, like, yeah,
Right.
we're not producing as many church workers and pastors as we used to, but the number of students, particularly athletes, that are coming to
Hmm.
the university,
Right.
nursing students, business students that don't know Jesus, or maybe they've been hurt by the church in the past, and now they come and they
Oh,
see
yeah.
Jesus in a different light, in a different perspective, and they're being
Yes.
baptized at
Right.
Concordia. They're
Hmm.
they're making their faith their own, so that when they go out to do their vocations, whether that's, serving in the business world or serving in the hospitals or wherever the case may be, they're doing that as Christians. And so,
Right.
like, to me, that is so like that is
That's more
essential
important than
for.
even being a pastor. Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
right, and, like,
Basically, yeah. Sorry.
those are the people that get to probably talk to more and more people even than you and I do on a regular basis about
Absolutely.
their faith. And
Absolutely.
so, yeah, I was very frustrated. We were talking before we hit the record button that I was
Hmm.
thinking about doing an episode about Concordia, but I was
Yeah.
just like, I'm a very emotional person, and
Right.
you
Yeah.
know, remembering who I represent and representing
Yeah.
not just myself, not just my church, not just
Hmm.
my university, not just, you know, the pastoral office, but as a representative of Jesus himself. And
Yes.
you know, you gotta keep your emotions in check sometimes. And so
Right.
if I say something that's gonna be held against me, and someone's gonna say, "Well, that's a pastor in Christ Church." Well, I don't. Maybe we should just close this university down, right?
Right. Yeah.
But we've always operated at Family of God, you know, as a church that for many years. I mean, we've been blessed to never have to live hand to mouth. But
Right.
whenever we've thought
Yes.
about a new ministry, or for instance, 7 years ago, we moved to a new building, and we thought, you know, there's no way that we're going to be able to afford to move into this building. But we
Right.
also know that God is calling us to move into this building. And so
Yeah.
we're going to trust his guidance. And sure enough, we make that step. And within the next 60 days, here comes all the money that we need to
Wow.
buy this building. One of our treasurers,
Amazing.
she just moved a couple of years ago. She moved up north, but she always said, God will provide. And
Oh,
so
that's great. Yeah.
when we're in the middle of God's will, which I fully believe that Concordia's mission is in the middle of God's will and is doing the
Yes.
things that God has called it to do, God will
Absolutely.
provide the
Right.
financing, and God will provide all that it needs to continue to make disciples. And so I was
Yes.
relieved to find that
Hmm.
that the Board of Regents unanimously voted to keep
Yeah.
Concordia open, and even explore options moving forward, whether that be becoming autonomous.
Right.
I had heard a scuttlebutt about potentially, you know, exploring even things outside of the LCMS, outside of the
Yeah.
Michigan district. Not gonna get too much into that. So,
Right.
but it was just, it's good that they're thinking about other options to ensure that this place remains a sanctuary, remains a safe haven, remains a place that people are going to come and meet
Right.
Jesus. So, um,
With you're totally speaking my language, Tyler. And could I maybe give a mini sermon here for a second?
absolutely, dude. Preacher's going to
So
preach, right?
you're right. Yeah, that's what I do. Right. So uh, I was very impressed with the amount of people while I was there that, as you said, came in, maybe had at most a peripheral understanding of what Christianity was, and maybe in some cases had never heard of Lutheranism or the Lutheran Church or whatever. And throughout their time at Concordia, as business majors, education majors, English majors, whatever their major might have been, they went from possibly having no faith or just a little faith, and wherever they're at, that's great. That's wonderful. No problem. But by the end of their time at Concordia, these folks had very, very deep faith, from what I could tell. A lot of people, not everybody, but many, many people there. If you're on a sports team, you pray before every practice, every single game. There's the devotion
Hmm.
usually.
Hmm.
Like everyone is required to take, what is it, like 6 or 7 classes based in theology
Yeah.
at Concordia. It might be 5, I don't know, but it's a substantial amount of courses that you need to take. And what I would say is, at my first installation, Tyler, at my first congregation in Cleveland, Ohio, a pastor that I had met years ago at Fort Wayne, uh, I just visited Fort Wayne. I went to St. Louis, but I visited there, met him there. He came up to me, he put his hands on my shoulders, and he said, Mark Renner, Pastor Mark Renner, you are a child of God. You're a husband, you're a father, and then a pastor, always in that order, never out of that order. And then he just walked away. And for us as Christians, being a child of God isn't so much a calling or a vocation, it's more of a gift. It's a
Hmm.
gift from God to be a child of God. And what I would say is this, Tyler: Martin Luther, he taught, when he read Genesis, what he saw was that the family unit is the most precious unit in society. It's the first unit that God created. So out of the family unit, came all of these other units, business units, educational units and structures, medical units, even the church came out of the family. And every structure, every unit in society should replicate that and should model that. And if ever there's something happening in our lives as Christians, like let's say your kids go to public school and or parochial, and they're having practices the day after Christmas or during the Lenten services, we should be concerned about that, because that educational system is there to support the family and to support people in their walk with Jesus Christ, or help the church share that good news. So for me, my highest calling isn't being a pastor. It's being Dana's husband. It's being a father to Mark Vincent, to Demetrios, to Andreas. Those are my highest callings. If aliens took me up out of here, not that I believe in aliens, but somebody else would come in and preach God's word rightly and administer the sacraments rightly. I could believe in aliens, but I don't know. I'm not sure if they're real or not, right? But somebody else would come in here.
Time.
Right.
I'm always good for a good conspiracy theory.
Right. Somebody else would go to St. Mark, and they would preach God's word rightly, and they would administer the sacraments rightly. But only I can be Dana's husband. Only I can be a father to my sons. Mm-hmm. And those are much higher callings than being a pastor. Martin Luther talked this way all the time. All the time he did. He said, being a mother's a higher vocation than being a pastor. Being a father is a higher vocation than being a pastor. So the family unit. And the family unit is promoted at Concordia. People's vocations are promoted. I heard the football coach talking about this at Concordia on one of the videos. It's like, your main job is to provide and protect. Man, that's great. That's wonderful. So the Concordias are about so much more than being church workers. And as Lutherans, we understand this. This is one of our disputes with Rome, kind of. Mm-hmm. Vocation is not just being a pastor or a priest or a nun or a deaconess. There are many holy vocations. It's a holy vocation to be a garbage man, to be a doctor, to be a lawyer, to be a father, to be a mother, to be a spouse. Mm-hmm. So when people talk like, well, they're not producing as many pastors or as many DCEs as they used to. And I'll just say this, Tyler. I'm just going to say this. Maybe if your only encounter with Lutheran education is having gone to the seminary, and maybe if you think the only vocation in church work that matters is the pastoral office, maybe you wouldn't be that concerned about the Concordia undergrads closing.
Yeah.
Just maybe. But for people like you and for people like me that have experienced Lutheran education in college too, and we value DCEs and DCMs and choir directors and people like that, and we know how needed they are. And it's great if somebody goes to state school. State school's wonderful too. There are many different routes, but it's also good when somebody goes to Irvine or Ann Arbor or St. Paul, and they are trained to be DCEs, DCMs, music directors, so on and so forth. The only calling is not to be a pastor in church work. There are many different callings and many different paths to serve the church and to live out your vocation in many different ways. So that's my sermon. Thanks for hanging with me, man.
Praise be to Christ, right?
Amen.
No, I agree wholeheartedly with that. Especially as a graduate of the Family Life program, I think that was one of the mm-hmm. One of the things when I was in my undergrad, when I was considering being a pastor, because when I started, I had declared that my major was going to be a child life specialist. So, mm-hmm. And at the time, you remember Joel Meyer, President yes. Dave Meyer's son, Joel.
Yeah,
he was the only other male in that program, and so right. he was very formative for me. And but I started with with the child life specialist, then moved to social work, then moved to an emphasis in church work, and then when I was thinking about becoming a pastor, one of the things that I was told by other pastors was that, because I was concerned, I was like, well, I didn't take all the pre-sem courses, I didn't take all the theology, and they're like, Tyler, you're going to get all that at the seminary. What you're not necessarily going to get at the seminary And they have, not to discredit our seminary's education, the courses and stuff like that, but they're like, you're if you can major in something else in your undergrad, such as business, such as counseling or psychology or family life, like I was, you're going to have a greater understanding of not just the pastoral office, but of the other vocations that you are calling to serve, and the people that are within those vocations too. And so I really developed a great appreciation for the family unit. And during I think I really kind of honed in on this over the last 3 to 4 years, when it seemed like the family unit was and continues to be under direct assault from the enemy. And so one of the books that we read leading up to one of our district's all pastors conferences was a book called "Live Not by Lies" by Rod Dreher. I don't know if you had an opportunity to read that or not.
I have not yet. I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, it's a collection of different essays of men and women who lived through different totalitarianism types of governments, and men and women who lived through communism, lived through Nazi Germany, lived through all these different things. And one of the chapters that he writes was about how the family unit is the greatest resistance cell. And so if you want to resist the enemy, if you want to resist totalitarianism, you build up your family, and you focus on your family. You raise men and women, and you raise your sons, you raise your daughters to be lions and lioness who roar for righteousness, right? According to Proverbs 28.
Absolutely.
And, and be bold in that. And so kids are looking for direction from their parents, and so to hone in on that, and to know again that ministry and preaching and teaching does not just reside within the pastoral office. I think that Concordia has done a great job of preparing men and women, not just for the mission statement, right? Not just in service to the church, but in service to the world. And so I think I speak for both of us and all fellow alumni that we are rejoicing that Concordia is gonna stay open, hopefully for I said in one of my posts that I want my kids to be able to go to the greatest university in the world. And so so we're praise God that there's been at least a resolution for now, right? And so but
and we
not
need
to go ahead.
Yeah, we need to keep our eye on the ball too, and just remind people how important it is that Concordia stays open, and ask for accountability and transparency in the weeks, months to come, and continue to try to. I know that we raised collectively, the communities raised about $3.7 million in 10 days. St. Mark up here in Janesville, we were blessed from our mission grant to give $20,000 towards that. And I know a lot of people up here in Wisconsin were pretty concerned hearing about this. And quite frankly, Tyler, not to go down a rabbit hole here, but I think a lot of people have been pretty concerned, whether they're more traditional or however you want to call, categorize them, about the closings of the Concordias over the last 5 or 6 years. I don't know what's going on there. A lot of people are concerned, and they have some questions, and I really hope that trend doesn't continue on. I think it's a shame that Bronxville isn't there anymore, and Portland, and so on and so forth. And Selma. Oh my gosh, how did we lose Selma?
Right. Well, wow. in the whole Concordia, Texas, and I don't want to call it a debacle, but the way that we handled Concordia, Texas as well, and all that. I had Dr. Jim Marriott, one of our professors from the SEM, on the show not that long ago, and he was kind of talking a little bit about that, and he was very graceful, to his credit, very graceful towards towards all that. And but it's, I think that we've, not to be cliche, but when the main thing is no longer the main thing, it kind of loses it. We've lost our power, and the power that comes from Jesus. And when the focus is taken off of Jesus, that's where things when we become focused on building bigger barns, so to speak,
right. Mm-hmm.
that's kind of that's where we get in trouble. And so again,
Right.
we could talk for hours about this. I
We
want to
could.
give you your day in
All
court,
right.
so to speak. So
Sure.
let's talk about your book, man.
Yeah,
Talk about
let's do it.
Curious Cases.
Curious Cases, a series of short pastoral case studies. I wrote this over the course of 2.5 years. And basically, Tyler, the idea for this book, so I've been writing for years. Back in high school when I was in Asia, I wrote short stories all the time. I wrote hundreds of short stories when I was in Hong Kong. That's what I would do to sort of like unwind at night. That, and I would walk around Hong Kong at night. It was a lot of fun. And I'd listen to music on my iPhone. I would listen to like the Rolling Stones and sometimes like Kanye West or something like that. I was walking around. But oh man, it was so cool. But then I would also write at home, back in my apartment. And, so I've been writing for years. And then basically one day, so under the new curriculum at St. Louis, you already know this, I'm sure, like they need more case studies, or it's more practically based than it has been in the past. It's still very academic, of course, but they don't have many case studies, or at least they didn't at that time. So Professor Ben Haupt, he asked us in one of the last classes I took, there was a pastoral leadership class. He said, hey, write a case study. And, I wrote one on marriage, I believe it was. And I wrote it, I emailed it over to him, and I followed the Harvard case study model, which is basically presenting a context, characters, basically setting a scene, and then providing the reader with a challenge or an opportunity, and a few reflection questions at the end for the reader, for the group, or for the person to think about. So I sent him my case study, and he emailed me back and he said, Mark, that's one of the funniest things I've ever read in my entire life. He's like, I was laughing so hard that faculty and staff were coming in to check on me. They thought something was wrong. And he said, if that's true, then wow. If that's made up, then wow. You should try to get it published either way. So I talked to him and I said, well, maybe I'll write a whole book of case studies. And he's like, yeah, that's really interesting because we really need them here at the seminary. And also, I think they would be a great icebreaker at conferences, circuit meetings. And Tyler, I not only wrote this for the Lutheran Church or Lutheran Church Missouri Synod, my intention was I wrote this for the Church Catholic. So if somebody is an Assembly of God Christian in Australia, they can get a lot out of it. Mm-hmm. If someone is a like devout Vatican I style Roman Catholic in downtown Boston, they should be able to get a lot out of it. And if somebody's just, a Missouri Synod Lutheran, not just, but a Missouri Synod Lutheran in Toledo, Ohio, I think they can get a lot out of it as well. So basically, I tried to keep it real. I'm not puritanical or pietistic. I think that comes through in my writing. And I just tried to base it on real life stuff. So, for instance, you'll read these and you'll be like, oh, there's a character in here that smoked cigarettes, and he's not depicting it as being like a horrible negative thing. Now I understand kids don't smoke cigarettes. If kids are hearing this or reading this, don't smoke cigarettes, right? But you can be a Christian and smoke cigarettes. Lots of people do. Let's just be real about that. Or there's a character, he has a medical marijuana card. Okay. And I don't like demonize that or anything. It's just the fact of the matter. Most of our states, people have medical marijuana cards now. A lot of people do. So I just present that character as he is. And basically, Tyler, I tried to keep this fun, entertaining, and useful. And my thought with it is, it's the perfect icebreaker for like circuit meetings or Bible studies with your congregation, where I'll just give you a quick example. You could have a circuit where you have a guy that was the last guy to graduate from the old Springfield Seminary. He's like 73 years old, great guy, but boy, he's old school. And then you've got a guy who's 25. He thought for sure he was going to be doing campus ministry in Georgia. And somehow he's in like rural Kansas now. and this church kind of used to do college ministry, but they don't anymore. And they want him to like restart that or something, but it's not really clear what his role is in that. And then you have a guy who loves contemporary worship music. He wears, he's never worn anything but jeans and a t-shirt in the service. And all they do is contemporary worship. And then you have another guy, he's hoping that they can get the service back to Latin someday. And they're all there in the room. And these guys are all private people. And then you've got deaconesses at these circuit meetings too. And they're all sitting there and they have things and they have issues. And maybe they've driven 2 hours to get to this meeting. And they don't want to open up. They don't know these people. Right. But you can maybe open up, here's one. Raising children, kids cook supper Sunday, or dealing with a toxic situation or something like that. And then they can kind of, be detached a little bit from it and say, yeah, that kind of reminds me of like a choir director I had last year who was upset with my elder, and that can kind of break the ice. And the other great thing about this is, Tyler, if people don't respond well to it, parishioners or other pastors, what they can do is say, oh yeah, you're right. That's that crazy Mark Renner guy. And that's his fault. You're right. I didn't realize how crazy he is. We won't read that again. So right. I can be kind of the heavy in bringing this stuff up. I can sort of be the go-between, the mediator in all of this. So, but most specifically, Tyler, who I wrote this book for, Curious Cases, generally for leaders in the church, but more specifically for young pastors in training, pastors who've only been serving for 3 to 5 years. If I had a person in my mind, like the perfect person in my mind for who I wrote this for, I'll just come up with a name. Paul Schmidt. Paul Schmidt grew up at a fantastic church in Grand Rapids. They had 2 full-time pastors, vicar every year. They have a full-time director of sacred music or of worship. They have 2 full-time secretaries. They have an amazing day school. Paul goes to, let's say, Concordia, Nebraska, or one of the Concordias, Concordia, Ann Arbor, meets his amazing wife there. They get married in the chapel. And then they go to one of our great seminaries, either St. Louis or Fort Wayne, has an amazing time there, goes on vicarage at King of Kings in Omaha. It's amazing, and they love him there, and they're just, encouraging him, and they're, with him all the way, and his wonderful wife. And then for his first call, he is sent to Wrath of God Lutheran Church in rural Kansas, and or not to pick on Kansas, right? Rural Ohio or rural Michigan or or inner city Columbus or inner city, whatever you want to, however you want to describe it, right? That's just something I put out there. I love Kansas. Don't be mad at me, Kansas. So, and he goes there, and they've got like 10 people left. And they've had 8 pastors in 9 years. The last guy, he's disappeared. He's changed his name, deleted all of his social media accounts. No one knows where he is. I'm kidding, right? But not completely. And this, and here's another thing, Tyler, to think about. When someone becomes a pastor, usually, if you go straight through the system and through seminary, you, for the first time in your life, when you become a pastor, are an adult member of the congregation that you're a member of. That's usually the case. So the last time you were a member worshiping on a regular basis for more than like a few months or a year at a time at a congregation, you were 17 years old, 18 years old maybe. And now all of a sudden you're an adult member, you're a pastor, you're pastoring people. You could have members that have just a wealth of experience. You could have, you're trying to lead people and help people that have been through some stuff and are hurting and need a lot of love. So I wrote this really for pastors in training and people who've been pastors for 3 to 5 years. That was my main target audience, to help them think through some complicated, messy things, and to remember that, sometimes I think like professors or people we love and we respect and are amazing people, they're sharing stories with us. And I'm thinking, and I'm talking to them and I'm like, well, when was that? And they're like, oh, that was about 1988 when that happened. And I'm like,
20 years ago.
So you're saying
ago,
like
40 years ago.
Yeah, you're saying that, like, when you started there at your first call, they had 250 people there a week.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. And, like, they provided you with a parsonage and paid off all of your student loan debt, like, within a week of getting there.
Right.
That's not most of our congregations anymore. So I tried to keep it contemporary, but I also tried to write it in such a way that, like, if somebody in the 1920s were reading it, they could get a lot out of it. They wouldn't know about the internet, so that would be different.
Right,
But
right.
I also tried to write it in such a way to, like, where if someone reads this in 21, 24, they could get a lot out of it too. So I
Yeah.
tried to keep it real. Yeah.
Well, I think when I was reading, I'm glad you brought that up because I feel like I fall into that category.
Sure.
Right, I was ordained in 2020, right before the world went to crap,
Right.
and so yeah, I mean, so that was a very, so first of all, my first year of ministry, we didn't deal with a whole lot of, we weren't, and I'm not going to dive into my theories about 2020 and 2021,
Right.
but
Sure.
but we weren't sure what we were dealing with. It made it really hard for us to do ministry, and
Right.
so when people aren't coming to the church and when you're very limited in your access and the way that you're interacting with people. I mean, guys that came out of the seminary, especially these young, because you're right. I mean, guys that have come out of the seminary and they're 20, so if you start you're in your undergrad and you're 18, you probably graduate when you're 22, maybe 23.
Right.
I know a lot of guys. One of my buddies took a gap year. Our pastor that
Yeah.
that's with us at Family of God, Pastor Nick, he took a year between undergrad and seminary. So when you come out of the
Right.
sem, that's another 4 years. And so you're looking at 27, 28, that you're looking at like you said, 9 years ish, maybe even
Yeah.
10 since your last interaction with people. And if your first interaction with people is dealing with the COVID era,
Right.
that makes it so difficult to
Yes.
adjust to. And what you're supposed to do, but there's not a whole
Right.
lot of opportunities for that to happen. And so having something
Yes.
like this, where there are real situations, where there are,
Yeah.
real problems, no matter how silly that they may seem.
Right.
These are still people that are struggling. There's still people that need pastoral care and that need
Yes.
guidance and that need love and grace and
Right.
mercy. And so providing them with these opportunities is excellent.
Right.
The various cases that you describe, are these all real stories, or are some of them kind of creative from your end?
Some are creative. Like, I would say, so out of the 150, I'd say about 50 are almost exact retellings of something I saw and experienced, like almost like verbatim. I don't use any real names or any real locations. I try to disguise things enough to where, you wouldn't know exactly what I'm talking about or whatever.
Right.
And then another 50, another third, I would say are dramatizations of, like, I saw this in mainland China when I was like 19. And then I'm going to combine that with something that happened on Vicarage. And then also, I'm probably going to combine that with something I saw at my first call. So they're dramatizations, but I would say they're true. I would say the dramatizations are true. They're truthful,
True.
absolutely. And then I would say another third are, I see this happening in the world. This with, building the, World Cup stadium or something like that, and
Mhm.
unfair labor laws or something. And I think, well, how would this play out if a leader in the church was in that situation and was encountering that and had an opportunity to give pastoral advice or just Christian advice in general, or had an opportunity to speak up? Like in one of these, the Confession of R.B. Lewis Samuels, basically, to me, that's not something I experienced firsthand, but that's based loosely on two people, John List, who killed his family, and the Zodiac killer. What would they have said if they had repented towards the end of their life to a pastor? How would
Mhm.
have that sounded?
Right.
And that sounds far fetched and crazy, like if you're reading that at the seminary, but I'm not going to specifically say who, but well, I guess I just did John list, but there have been, there have been Missouri Synod people have done some heinous things. And the fact what I want to get across to the students, Tyler, is Christians, we're not these like magical people. There is a supernatural quality in being baptized.
Sure.
But what
Absolutely.
I would say is, yeah, we're dealing with all the same stuff that everybody else in the world is, pretty much. The same trends, the same, temptations. We're seeing the same videos on YouTube. We're getting upset about that. We're thinking it's funny, whatever it is. And we need to realize that when we talk to our people and when we meet our people. You're going to have members that have been divorced. You're going to have a member that maybe has schizophrenia. You're going to have a member that, did something horrible when they were 17, and you're also going to have members that are, maybe have so little money you can't understand even like what that is, what that world would be to have so little money, so few connections. And you'll also have members in places like Bay Village or Auburn Hills or Clayton or Kirkwood that have more money than you or
know
could ever imagine,
Yeah.
And so you're meeting all kinds of people. And I guess it's like to follow the golden rule. Well, I don't know what it's like to live under a bridge. I don't know. So that's why we need our imaginations so we can empathize with people. And I tried to use my imagination in this quite a bit.
Yeah, and I think that comes out, and I think that's it's always, God gives us imagination. God gives us our our mind and our senses and our logic and our wisdom and things like that, and when it can be used in this way to provide help and to provide aids to be able to allow other people to see, because I agree wholeheartedly with you in the sense that people in large suburban congregations, affluent communities that have more money than they even know, that the problems that they have, I think too often, and we see this a lot with Family of God, that because we're supported by a number 30 plus different congregations in the southeastern Michigan district, that support. And I think too often our people, the people that, like, when I go and guest preach at some of these other congregations, in a Birmingham or a Rochester or a Livonia or Ann Arbor or whatever the case may be.
Right.
I think that they think that Family of God is like this whole other world in the Southwest Detroit area, and in some ways it very much is. In some ways it very much is, right? But what people find is that, and when I get to talking with some of these people, the people that at Family of God, they are struggling in the same way that you are struggling with. They've got estranged relationships with their families, with their friends. They've got addictions. Maybe it's not. Maybe someone in the suburbs isn't addicted to heroin, but maybe they're addicted to pornography, or they're addicted to their jobs, or to they need to drink X amount of alcohol before they go to work just to function, right? And they just, I like to say, they just hide it better. And at a place like Family of God, it's a little more raw. And so allowing people to see that, these people are they're just like you. They're just like us. And and I think that, having a collection of different stories that they go, hey, if it doesn't directly relate to them, it can certainly relate to somebody that they know about. And and so I'm excited for the potential for what this book can have for the greater church at large. You said the church Catholic, right? And so that's not big C, that's little c Catholic. That's the universal all Christians, right? And so when is this going to be officially? Is it already officially been published? It's out.
Yes,
so
it's out.
So you can go to. Can you go to Amazon?
Amazon.
Can you go
Barnes and Noble? You can go to whipsandstock.com. Amazon's the most. Amazon, you can get it from anywhere in the world. And if there's a congregation out there that was like, hey, this would be fun to do for a Bible study, or this would be fun to do for a book club, or the seminaries, they can get a hold of whipsandstock.com directly, and I think get about a quarter off for like 4 books or more, something like that. And it's a pretty good deal. and it's available on Kindle. It's available through paperback. And yeah, I believe in this book, Tyler. Like, if you had written this book, you might not believe me, but I would be promoting this book. Like, if my friend Jim Dorner in Albany, New York had written this, I'd be promoting it because I believe in it so much. I think we as the church have to do a better job of meeting people where they are, as opposed to where maybe I would want them to be, or I would expect them to be, or we would expect them to be as a church. And we have to engage people a little better. I don't know if this is your experience at all, but like, I meet people, I guess younger millennials a lot, and then Gen Z quite a bit, who have had so little contact with Christianity or with the church, and that's fine. That's cool, that's where they're at, and I just am amazed. I don't want to be too hard on like congregations or our congregations, but like the amount of congregations out there that, I mean, if they were to, let's say, they have a property that they bought for peanuts 60 years ago, and there's nothing that like, there's nothing that unique necessarily about the property. And I'm not talking about any one church. There are just many churches like this in our country. But now there are like residential communities all around this, nice businesses all around this. So they bought it for like $20,000 in like 1960, and it's now worth like $4 or $5 million. It's like 10 acres. They could sell that thing, and they could move into like a storefront or a little church building, maybe somewhere else, and still have like $3.5 million in the bank or something, and they could support local artists. They could open up a food pantry or a soup kitchen, or they could do any number of things. They could have a full-time staff with that money if they wanted to be really staff-led and just have staff leading things all the time. I mean, the possibilities are endless. Yeah. And right in those communities, it's also amazing to me how many people I'll like meet sometimes where they're like, "Where is this place?" "Oh, it's 2 blocks that way." And they're like, "So Lutheran, what is that? I'm lost." Right. Like I went to church when I was really little. I don't even remember it. Like, what is this? So to me, the church has like this fantastic opportunity. I don't look at it as a bad and horrible time. I think it's a great time to be the church, to quote Dale Meyer.
I was just going to say, yep. I do want to, if it's all right with you, I've got the book up on my phone, and I would like to just read from the probably just the first one, just to kind of give people a taste of what would be inside the book. So chapter 1, so you've got it divided into different subsets, right? So you've got like a ton of cases. For instance, chapter 1 is caring for the poor, and then you've got let's see if I pull up the contents. You've got caring for the poor, you've got conflict resolution, you've got death and dying, you've got missions, you've got prison ministry, separation and divorce, sexual misconduct, youth and young adult ministry. So you're hitting a lot of areas that I think churches might think that they're equipped, but maybe they haven't experienced something like this yet. And so it's good to have to kind of, we always tell our people at Family of God, when you know how Satan's going to attack you, then you're going to be better off. Like, you can prepare for that, right? And so like when what situations might come to you, and you can actually be prepared and be able to speak well to those situations. It's just going to make you a better pastor, make you a better counselor, a better Christian in your vocation to be able to offer words of comfort. So this comes from chapter 1. This is Janet's prayer request. This is the very first case that you present. Is that you good if I go ahead and read this for the listener? All right. So this is Janet's prayer request. It says, Janet is a single mother of 2 living in a 500 square foot studio apartment in between the downtown of the city and the old industrial park. She has recently lost her job as a hostess due to the lack of in-person dining at the restaurant that she worked at. Even more devastatingly for Janet, her rent is scheduled to be raised significantly on the 1st of next year, which is only 5 months away. These difficulties in life have caused Janet to pray a great deal. She has found herself asking God for help every morning when she wakes up and every evening when she goes to bed. Janet has tried to reach out to her network of girlfriends and acquaintances for guidance and tips on new job opportunities, but unfortunately, many of her friends are facing similar hardships due to the recent economic downturn in their city. 3 weeks to the day after Janet lost her job as a hostess, she's playing with her 2 sons at the local elementary school playground when she notices a sign for a new church. The sign reads, "Come worship Jesus Christ with us at Full Hope Church. Sunday worship is at 9 a.m., followed by 10:15 Bible study. And free breakfast." Oh, free breakfast.
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
That's right. "We are meeting in the school gymnasium. All are welcome." The next day, Janet attends Full Hope Church with her 2 sons and really enjoys the sermon and praise music. She even found the little explanation on communion for next week's worship service interesting. The people at this church actually believe that they are eating Jesus' body and drinking his blood in communion. That's a new thing for Janet. For Bible study, she goes to Pastor Jason's group. It is a small group of 7 people, including the pastor. The Bible study is focused on the time that Jesus fed the huge crowd in Luke chapter 9, and also the 4th petition of the Lord's Prayer, "Give us this day our daily bread." Janet is impressed by how Pastor Jason stresses that the 4th petition of the Lord's Prayer puts a high emphasis on how God leads us to remember that our daily needs are cared for by him, even the needs of all evil people, and regardless if someone remembers to pray or not. And that we pray in this petition that God would help us to remember this, and that he would remind us to receive our daily bread with joy and with thanksgiving. At the end of the Bible study, each person is asked if they have any prayer requests. Nearly every person in the group gives Pastor Jason a prayer request concerning work or housing needs. Pastor Jason's prayer request is that his home church will be able to find all the resources and to pay for his health insurance. Janet is the last person in the group to offer a prayer request, and looking down at the floor for a moment, silently for a few seconds, she speaks up and says, "I don't know how I should say this exactly. I've been out of work for just over 3 weeks. I've been praying for help and asking friends if they know of any good job opportunities, and nothing has come up. A guy I knew in high school heard that I was desperate for work and emailed me the other day, and he said that he manages a club near where I live. In fact, I could walk to work and not spend any money on gas. It's a strip club, and he said I could probably get a job stripping. All he has to do is interview me, and he would pay me over 5 times what I was making before as a hostess. To be honest, I really need this job to pay the rent and provide food and clothes for my 2 sons. Please pray that I get this job at the strip club because I'm really desperate."
Yep.
And then you have 3 questions that follow, right? If you were Pastor Jason, how would you respond to Janet's prayer request? What biblical or extra biblical passages might be good to read in this situation? What are some practical things that Jason and the congregation of Full Hope Church could do to help Janet and her sons? And so, again, this is not a case, this is not a situation that probably comes up all the time.
Right.
But I think you'd be surprised when a situation like this, right? When someone has gone through a really devastatingly hard time in their life where their finances are in crisis, and they're trying to figure out just a way to make ends meet. And not only that, but she's trying to take care of her kids. And here comes an opportunity to meet those needs, but it comes at the cost of doing something that would not be honoring God in that.
Right.
And so, again, not just, maybe it's not a stripper, but maybe thinking of family of God, maybe it's an opportunity to run drugs or sell drugs,
Yes.
or be a sleazy landlord or something like that, right?
Right.
So I think it's a great opportunity for people to think like, okay, well, what if this happened? What if this situation came about?
Yes.
And I think it's just a good thing. It's a good thing for us to be able to think about.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Like, probably there won't be many readers that will be able to relate to every case study here, but even if you can't relate, it's fun to and interesting and compelling to sort of put yourself in somebody else's shoes, or you might be prepared for something that you're going to encounter with a friend, a parishioner, an acquaintance in 5 or 10 years. You don't even know it, but God is preparing you for that moment and for that time. So, yeah, I think there are a lot of people right now in our society that are struggling economically big time. I think there are a lot of people too, Tyler, that would appear to be middle class, but they're $120,000 in debt to Oberlin College
Mm-hmm.
for their education degree, and they just love kids. They just want to teach,
Mm-hmm.
and they are really struggling, and they and their spouse are really struggling. So that chapter, caring for the poor, that means a lot to me, and I think throughout the book you get a sense that, yeah, I have a soft spot for people that are struggling financially, especially for like young families and things. So that's
Well,
kind of
and
indicative of the book.
yeah, and going back to, what we were talking about with the, with the family unit and in
Yeah.
maintaining, we would want for somebody like Janet to, because this is kind of where the worlds collide, right? You
Right.
want your people to have an opportunity to provide for, and to be a provider, to be a protector
Right.
for their families, and to be able to have an opportunity to
Hmm.
raise their kids in a God-fearing way.
Yes.
But cost,
Right.
is that,
Hmm.
is it worth compromising what to
Right.
be true about God's
Yes.
word for that, and simply, and again, going back, and I like how you brought in some catechesis with this too, and
Right.
I think that that's
Yes.
probably part of your goal as well, is to bring
Right.
in different aspects of what we teach and believe scripturally
Right.
as Christians. And
Yes.
so, not that the catechism fell from the sky, but we do
Right.
believe that the catechism is a right exposition of the
Yes.
scriptures,
Yep.
and so, so how do we balance that? And is
Right.
we want to provide, but we also want to be able to say, okay, God will provide for His
Hmm.
people, and so,
Right.
this could very well, a situation like this, maybe it's not God providing for you, but it's actually Satan tempting you to go down
Hmm.
this path to actually bring more death and destruction into an already seemingly hopeless situation. And so,
Yeah.
just kind of, again,
Absolutely.
being prepared for those kinds of situations, for whatever you may face
Right.
amongst your congregations, I think is essential. Um, so
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And a little bit of what I'm doing there too is I am maybe putting, again, the Church Catholic sort of, maybe some people who have been, uh, have been blessed with some resources, or some congregations that have been blessed with some resources, a little bit on the hot seat, maybe a little bit. Not that we don't have a lot of congregations that do a
mhm.
ton to help, people who are struggling with poverty, or single parents and so on. But yeah, maybe a little bit of a heat check there. Like,
Yeah.
are we doing as much as we can? Should we be doing more? How can we rethink some things? Maybe some churches could come together in circuits or in districts and try to think of creative ways to do job training, or provide like
Right.
good quality, affordable housing. I can think of a church in St. Louis that's doing that, and it's really amazing. And I know you guys are doing a lot of stuff like that too. So I think we need more of it.
Yeah, and partnering with other entities that are, I like to
Yes.
say that, the church doesn't have to be a catch-all. The church doesn't have to be
Right.
a one thing for,
Yes.
a place that serves every single need. But, with Family
Right.
of God, I mean, we partnered with the ministry, and I'm hoping to get Deb on the podcast at some point as well. But it's a
Yeah.
ministry that helps to get women who are trafficked off the
Wow.
street.
Amazing.
There's various organizations that do help with housing. There's organizations that help getting people into sobriety houses and in addiction
Great.
programs, things like that. So, we don't have to be the one that does it, but we can lead them to the right resources, and continuing to build those partnerships with those other organizations. There's all different
Amazing.
kinds of options. One of the other cases that you wrote about that I skimmed through was a homeless man. This one kind of struck a nerve, not struck a nerve, but struck home for me,
Mhm.
because we face these kind of situations all the time, where you wrote about a guy who was living in a tent between apartment buildings, and he saw the
Yeah.
organist living in his life, and just living his life the way that he lives. And while this guy is struggling just to find food for the day, and and he sees that his organist is feeding, I don't know how many cats that you described, but he's feeding these fancy meals to the cat. The cats aren't eating all of it, so he notices that he throws the food into the trash, and then he waits till it's trash day, and then he goes and he picks through the trash to find the food that he knows that's in there, and he eats that. And and then the one guy sees him picking through the trash and calls the police, and then the pastor's response is not just is actually, well, let's do what we can to find out where this guy has been located and try to help him find some other more permanent solutions. And those are the kinds of things that I think speak to me. And obviously there's going to be other cases that speak to others. And I'm grateful. Sure. I'm grateful that you took time to write this.
Hey,
I think it's going to be a blessing. I think it's going to be a blessing to the church.
Yeah. And I mean, I poured my heart and soul into it for 2.5 years. I wanted to bless the whole church, and I just want to say also, God, just so people know where I'm at, God uses all kinds of people. From what I know, St. Paul and St. Peter were probably both fairly wealthy from what I can sort of figure out. I think Peter had a pretty strong, healthy business of fishing and being a fisherman, and where he lived in Capernaum, all of that. And, Paul at least had enough money to where he could study a lot, and in a time when most people didn't have those opportunities. And then you have people like, a guy like Dietrich Bonhoeffer. He was very wealthy too. So God uses the wealthy. God also uses the poor. God uses all middle class people, all kinds of people for the kingdom, and for sharing the good news of Jesus Christ. And, and we need each other. We need each other. Different men need women. Women need men. We have differing perspectives. Different cultures need each other. Different age groups need each other. Different economic groups need each other. We all need each other. And most of all, we need God. We need Jesus Christ.
Amen to that. Well, Mark, I appreciate you coming on today. I will post a link in the show notes and all that stuff,
cool.
where you can find the book Curious Cases, and we'll put it on. Yeah, show that up onto the screen so that people can see what it looks like. Yes, a series. What is that? A series of pastoral case studies.
Yeah.
So we will certainly get that out there. And so you said Amazon, and what was the name of the other website that you said you could potentially order in bulk?
Yeah. So Width and Stock Publishing House, WIPF and STOCK. It's out of Eugene, Oregon. It's a Christian publishing house out of there. And you go to the website or call directly or fax, and you can order in bulk from there. Like if it's 4 or more, I want to say it's like 25% off. If you do that, if you have like a church Bible study or something. Yeah.
Well, we're all about saving money. So
yes. And on Kindle, it's $9.99. So there you go.
Nice. There you go. Great. Beautiful. Mark, God bless you in your ministry.
God bless you, Tyler. Thank you so much. You too.
I pray that this book is not just a blessing to you and to your family, but to the church at large and to the various congregations that will read it. So God bless you, man. And
God bless you.
When the inevitable case studies 2 comes out, we'll have you on to promote and talk about that. And I'm just grateful for you and for your ongoing willingness to be outspoken about some things that maybe the church should speak up more about. And so continue to do you, and blessings to you and your family. And we'll talk soon, man.
Hey, talk to you soon, man. Grateful for you too. God bless you guys. All right,
man.
Later.